This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations. You're listening to Now Breakfast.
After declining for 4 consecutive months, what does Nigeria's inflation rate say about the cost of living in the country? Recent figures released by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that the rate fell from 22.22% in June to 21.88% in July. To get a sense of what this means for you, we're joined by Adegoiga Adebajo, who is an economist. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Morning, Stephen. As always, it's a pleasure to be here.
Indeed. It's always a pleasure to hear about declining rates as far as Nigeria's inflation is concerned. But the big question is, what does this mean for the man on the street?
Well, I guess what the man on the street expects to happen when you hear inflation rates are dropping is that prices are dropping. But the thing is, inflation isn't really a measure of prices dropping or the rate at which prices drop. It's a measure of the rate of price increases. And so what these figures are telling us is actually that prices are still increasing, but they are increasing at a slower rate. When you compare the figure 21.88 for July 2025 to July 2024, it was 33.4 then, and I think we all can remember the horrifying period where it seemed if you went into a shop in the morning and you go back in the afternoon, it's like the rate of the price. The price has changed. Now, what caused this? The government did a rebasing, and rebasing means that they reassess the commodities and the prices of items they use to calculate inflation. What was done at that time was to reduce the extent to which food and beverages are used to calculate inflation. And we all know that for the man on the street, food, beverages, non-alcoholic beverages are very important. And what the government said was that they felt there was a need to realign this to the realities. So the last time the rebasing was done was 2009, but in 2024, this was done. Now, some people argue against this, that a lot more of the man on the street's income is spent on food and transport than anything else at this point in time. And really, that's why with the figures coming down, it doesn't matter to the man on the street, or that inflation figures coming down, it doesn't matter to the man on the street. Cost of living is still high. There's pressure in terms of high prices. Purchasing power is reduced, and people wonder exactly what to spend money on. So that's about it, Stephen.
So, Mr. Adebajo, I mean, this begs the question of if you consider the target for 2025, and it does seem like we're much closer to what government had set out to hit by the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
It then begs the question of whether we should be targeting cost of living in terms of specifics to how much people are spending on food, or should we be targeting what we are targeting at the moment, which is just slowing down the pace of how these items go up?
Well, I think it's important from a macroeconomic perspective, and we really can't blame government for doing that because there's a need to manage the economy on both the monetary and fiscal side. And the target is reduce the rate at which prices are rising. Okay, reduce the rate of price increases. Now, that in itself is not an act to bring down prices. What the reality is that prices went up because of the devaluation of the currency and because there was so much money in supply, in circulation, which is one of the reasons why the central bank has tried to reduce cash. Now, this is working. For the man on the street, and what needs to be done is to find ways to create some form of social impact, ways in which if salaries are not rising to make life much more affordable to people, then it becomes very important that the government must look for some other way to provide social safety net to the vulnerable ones. There are efforts in this regard, but then again, we can really talk about the extent to which these efforts have actually worked. That's a big question. Have they worked?
Well, it's definitely a question that we'll continue to ponder answers to over the course of the next few weeks and months. Mr. Adebajo, thank you very much for your time and expertise. Adegboyega Adebajo is an economist who joined us to speak this morning on the drop that the National Bureau of Statistics has pointed out as far as Nigeria's inflation rate is concerned. It dropped to 21.88% in July, which is lower than the figure recorded in June when it was at 22.22%. You're still listening to Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. We turn to the world of security in a few short moments. Do stay with us.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.